This video and every video on this channel is made possible by your support on patreon.com/616entertainment. I couldn't do this without you, and your contributions keep this channel alive. You can also grab an official shirt over on prowrestlingtees.com/616entertainment. What's up, Dan-Dans? Welcome to the brand new weekly series here on youtube.com/616entertainment, the Fight Night Championship Tournament. On this show, we're going to be using one of my all-time favorite games, Fight Night Round 4, to determine, once and for all, who is the greatest heavyweight boxer of all time. Over the next 7 weeks, 8 of the greatest heavyweights to ever lace them up are going to step into the ring, competing in a single elimination tournament. When it's all said and done, we will have our first ever official 616 Entertainment Fight Night Heavyweight Champion. Oh my goodness gracious, Dan-Dans. Welcome to the Fight Night Championship Tournament. This is our first fight. This is episode 1. This is where the bracket gets kicked off in a big way, making his way to the ring first, the one and only George Foreman. Now, you may know him from the Foreman Grill. You may remember his later career where he was a little heavier, a little more bald, a lot more bald. But we're going with prime Joe Frazier here, you understand? And standing across the ring from him in this first fight is Lennox Lewis. That's a big boy right there. 6'5", 245 pounds. These are two big bangers that we're starting with here. Look at these introductions. We don't have the announcer talking to us because I turned off all the commentating. You know what I'm saying? Because if you were hearing Joe Tessitore and Teddy Atlas talking underneath me as I'm already stumbling over my own words, that would be kind of hard to listen to. But as these guys are getting the adulation, the respect, the applause from this sold-out crowd here at the MGM Grand Dan-Dans before the bell rings, I need you to get into the comments and make your prediction. Who punches their ticket to the second round? Will it be George Foreman or will it be Lennox Lewis? Now I know everybody... Oh my goodness, what a shot! Left uppercut to the midsection from Lennox Lewis. Now, I said in the early going that these are two big boys right here. And we're going to get to the height. We're going to get to the reach. Oh, straight right hand from George Foreman. But these aren't big boys just in the size of these competitors' bodies. You know, these are giants in compared to most of us who are watching this video right now. But you want some other big numbers? How about the records that both of these guys compiled across their multi-decade Hall of Fame careers? George Foreman, when it was all said and done, now obviously we are in the 616 verse right now, so time doesn't matter. Oh, what a straight right hand from Lennox Lewis! Time doesn't matter. None of these guys are retired. None of these guys are dead. You know what I mean? Because unfortunately, there's at least one person I can think of in this tournament who is dead in real life. But this is the 616 verse, as these guys are going to town here. Man, I realize that as the weeks go on, me providing play-by-play on left hand, right hand, uppercut, you know, that could get a little boring, so I am a boxing fan, and I've also done my research, but these guys are really going at it. It's making it a little difficult for me to get to my research right now. But as I was saying, outside of these guys just being gigantic physically, if you want to know what else is big, it's their win-loss records. When it was all said and done, George Foreman walks away. What a straight right hand from Lennox Lewis! George Foreman calls it a career with a record of 76-5. Are you out of your mind? You know, boxing and MMA are different animals, but if we look at some of the guys who are considered the greatest of all time in MMA, you know, what's one of the first names you think of? Probably George Rush St. Pierre. He might not be your number one, but he's certainly in the conversation. He retired with a record of 27-2, you know? somebody like, I'm not even going to say John Jones, fuck him. But let's talk about Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva walks away 34 wins, 11 losses. Now, he stuck around longer than he should have. He kept fighting way too late, and even Anderson has transitioned to boxing at this point. But think about that. 34-11, 27-2. George Foreman, 76-5. Take all of the wins in Anderson Silva's career, add all of the wins from George St. Pierre's career, and it's not even as many knockouts as Foreman scored across his boxing career. George Foreman notched 68 knockouts in his career. Now think about that one more time. As we come to the end of the first round, George Foreman, 76 wins, 68 of those came by knockout. So that, I think, paints the picture for what kind of fight Lennox Lewis is in for here. If Foreman wins, I don't think we're looking at a decision, okay? The odds are not in favor of a decision. And at the same time, let's go across the ring, as the start of round 2 is here. We're going across the ring. Lennox Lewis, 41 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw. Are you out of your mind? 41-2-1, and 32 of those 41 wins come by way of knockout. These are 2 big bruising boys, and this is not going to be a pitter-patter competition. You know what I'm saying? This is big business as Foreman lands to the body. Lennox Lewis getting a little tricky-dicky there with that bolo punch, but nobody home. Oh, look at that! Foreman parries the left hook, lands with a right straight of his own. And we've got Foreman pressing Lennox Lewis up against the ropes here. We have seen George Foreman put people against the ropes before, and didn't necessarily work out all that well for him. If you don't know what I'm referencing, how about the Rumble in the Jungle in Zaire, Africa? George Foreman versus Muhammad Ali. Ali put his own back against the ropes. Foreman thought he was landing bomb after bomb. He thought he was going to get Ali out of there quick. That's where the term rope-a-dope came from. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to call George Foreman a dope. I don't think he's a dope. I think that fucking afro is dope. If anything here is dope, it's George Foreman's hair. Not to be outdone, Lennox Lewis across the ring with those big dreads, those braids, you know what I'm saying? Goodness gracious. Oh, look at that. Sneaking the left uppercut through the guard of George Foreman there. And you can see these guys both exhibiting different defensive styles. You've got George Foreman with that cross guard, you know. He's got those forearms up like an equals sign in front of his face, in front of his body. Watch Lennox Lewis, much more traditional, with one arm up top, one arm guarding the body. Different styles here, different eras. Oh man, Foreman was looking for a power shot there, pulled back on it. And I said when we first simmed Muhammad Ali versus Mike Tyson, which was the greatest fight or match, anything that has ever been on this channel before, that was it. And that was kind of the prelude to this show becoming a thing. Go back if you have not seen it. I will put the link in the description, hopefully. If I forgot, let me know in the comments and I'll add it. But, oh my, what a right hand from Lennox Lewis. These guys are throwing leather. On an episode of Let's Play Friday, I was like, you know what? Fight Night Round 4 is one of my favorite games of all time. I've never actually put Muhammad Ali against Mike Tyson. That's the ultimate dream fight. Let's do it. Let's see how that plays out. And I'm not going to spoil... Oh, look at that digging body shot. I saw that coming and I laid out and just waited for it. I'm not going to spoil who may or may not have won Ali versus Tyson. So go down in the description, check that out. That worked as the prelude, the prequel to this show because I loved it. You guys loved it. That's one of the higher viewed episodes of Let's Play Friday all season. And that told me all I need to know. That if I wanted to spin that off into its own show, that you guys would like it. You guys would be there for it. And here we are with the Fight Night Championship Tournament. And hey, if this does well across the whole season, which is going to be rather short, 7 weeks to get through this bracket, If this does well across the whole season, there's no reason why we can't do a Fight Night Tournament Season 2 where we do lightweights or welterweights or middleweights, you know what I mean? Fight Night Round 4 has a deep roster, and it's not just the heavyweight division. I just figured there was a lot of recognizable names in the heavyweight division. Plus, here's the deal, man. Ali versus Tyson was a draw. It was a great fight, and the way this bracket is laid out, the finals could come down to Ali versus Tyson too. You never know. Easily could happen. Now, that was totally by random. What I did was I took all the guys, all 8 guys that were going to be on this bracket. I put them in a list, and I went to a random number generator. And let's say it went to 8. Then that means the 8th guy on the list, he went number 1 on the bracket. Let's say random number generator gave me 4. From that bottom spot, I started over. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoever was the 4th guy who was facing that top guy. I kind of think, and I've been told I'm wrong about this, but I think like seeding brackets to where you have in the top left the number 1 favorite and then the bottom right the number 2 favorite. When you put them on the opposite ends and you kind of give them easy matchups because you're trying to you're kind of trying to work the finals. You're trying to get it to where it's going to come down to the ultimate fight in the finals. Fuck that. I don't want this to be predictable in any way, shape, or form. So the placement was fairly random, and we wound up with fights across the board that have never happened in real life. And like I said, when I revealed this show, the last fight of the first round is going to be Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr., which did unofficially take place in 2021, but 2 things about that. Number 1, it was an exhibition, so it did not count. It's not on either of their records. And number 2, they're both in their mid-50s when that fight happens. In this game, they're going to be in their prime, and it's going to be a whirlwind of destruction. That's what we know. Oh, man. Look at these. I feel like a lot of the work coming in here in this 3rd round. Oh, man! There's some offense landing on both sides! I was going to say, we're seeing defense on display here in this 3rd round, and then both guys start landing fucking destructive shots. I feel like Foreman here, that could have done it as Lennox Lewis is hurt. He misses the uppercut and he's hurt. George Foreman's pouring it on. This is the first time in this opening fight that anybody has been in trouble, and was Lennox Lewis just saved by the bell? We don't know. And you know what I'm going to do? I just decided right now, this is going to be a lot more editing for me. I'm actually going to censor out the the gauges that are on screen right now, because I can see who has what amount of health left, who has what amount of stamina left, and whose damage meter is filling up. I think that's kind of anticlimactic, you know? Let's say, and this is not true for either one of these guys, but let's say one of these guys had suffered no damage and the other guy looked like he could take maybe one more punch. You would know before the bell rings that, he's done in this next round. He's done. So fuck that. Across this show, I'm going to censor out those meters because nobody needs to know that. George Foreman here, he puts Lennox Lewis's back against the ropes immediately because he knows he had him hurt at the end of that 3rd round. And you got to think he's going to want to not let Lennox Lewis off the hook. He's going to keep him on that hook. You know what happens when you hook a fucking shark, when you hook a fucking marlin, when you hook a fucking swordfish, those big behemoths. You want to keep them on the line. You want to drag them around. You want to tire them out. You know what I'm saying? Because if you let them have that energy, if you let them just figure out their bearings and get on equal footing again, it's going to be a harder fight for you. George Foreman knows that. The guy's 76-5. You think he doesn't know how to handle an opponent he just hurt? Goodness me. Oh my goodness! I made a decision right there to sit back and just let the comment. I was just gonna drown myself out on the commentary. I was like, let's hear some of these punches, and maybe I have been distracting Lennox Lewis this whole time because he blocked a shot from George Foreman and a straight right hand put Foreman on the canvas. Here in the 4th round, you thought Lennox Lewis was hurt. You thought Lennox Lewis was in trouble. Lennox Lewis says, "Cool your jets, brother. Cool your jets." And George Foreman here, you would think, would take the rest of this round off. He would be the one stepping back going, you know what? I just got my fucking brains rattled. Give me a second. Let me figure out where I'm at. You'd think George Foreman would be the one who's trying to stay away now. Lennox Lewis said, you know what? You want to keep bringing it? Go ahead. You saw what happened last time you brung it. You understand? And I think we're seeing the output of Lewis upped by a multiple of what it was here. Go back to the beginning of round 4. Don't do it right now. Obviously finish the video. But on your repeat viewings, watch the opening of round 4 and oh, what a left uppercut from Foreman. Answered back with a body shot by Lewis. The early output here in round 4 from Lennox Lewis, I feel like was slow. He was kind of catching his bearings. But after that knockdown, Lennox Lewis he's firing on all cylinders. His defense is tight. He's letting Foreman throw bomb after bomb because I think he knows now I can get to him. I know I can get to him now. And you got to wonder what that does to the confidence of George Foreman. You know? George Foreman, if you did not know, let's sprinkle in a little more old school boxing trivia here. Before that fight with Muhammad Ali, George Foreman was 40-0 walking into that fight against Ali. Just an invincible swarm, a storm of violence was George Foreman. 40-0. But you know what happened after George Foreman lost that fight to Muhammad Ali? If you don't know what happened, he didn't come back with a vengeance immediately. George Foreman lost that fight to Muhammad Ali, and he disappeared for 2 years. And he came back with a ridiculous knockout win over Ron Lyle. It was in the 5th round. Fucking nearly killed him. But George Foreman didn't get knocked out. He didn't suffer that first loss and then immediately get back on the bike. He thought he was done. George Foreman walked away, and that was almost it for the rest of his career. Now, that turned out to not be the case. He did come back with a vengeance, and he won titles after that. But I'm just trying to put into perspective how hard of a shot that was from Lennox Lewis to put Foreman down and what kind of mindset Foreman must have right now to get back into this fight. And here's the thing. I am not scoring this round by round. It's kind of, you know, I feel like you hear Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier say things when they're commentating on UFC pay-per-views like, I'm not a judge, I'm doing commentary. It's like, it's hard to judge when you're talking about it. It is. I'm having a hell of a time keeping track of who's landing more, who's landing harder. I don't know how these rounds have shaken out. So, the way this fight is going on the judges' scorecards is anyone's guess, but I'm going to make a prediction right now that we don't get, not only do we not get to the judges' scorecards, I don't think we get to round 12. I don't think we get to that final round at all. Now, only one guy's back has been on the canvas so far, and that's George Foreman. And I don't know how many of you picked Foreman coming into this fight, but I don't think I saw his back touching the canvas first. No disrespect to Lennox Lewis. I mean, Lennox Lewis is the bigger fighter. 6'5" with an 84-inch reach compared to George Foreman, who is no slouch in that department. 6'3", 82-inch reach. It's not like Lennox Lewis towers over him. This isn't the Big Show versus Rey Mysterio. You know what I mean? But I thought Lewis might move a little more. I thought he might want to stay on the outside, which he kind of is. But he's still the only one who scored a knockout, which is kind of insane to me. And, oh man, George Foreman loaded up with a tricky uppercut right there. It was parried and he ate a body shot. And what did he do right after eating that body shot? He backed off. They're going at war here again, but that body shot to George Foreman, he did not like it. And I don't blame him. Getting hit with a body shot that close from Lennox Lewis is probably like getting shot in the fucking rib cage with one of those riot shotguns that shoot those little beanbags. Can you tell I watched Jackass the movie recently? That was the first Jackass movie where Johnny Knoxville got shot right in the midsection with that riot control gun. No thanks. I don't want that. Hey, Dan Dans, that's a question for the comments. Would you rather let a heavyweight boxer... No. Let's say Francis Ngannou. Speaking of Jackass. Francis Ngannou, the current UFC heavyweight champion, in Jackass 4, punched Aaron McGeehee in the balls. Would you rather let Francis Ngannou punch you in the midsection, or would you rather get shot in the abdomen with a riot control shotgun beanbag deal in the midsection? Which one would you prefer? I don't know if I have an answer to that question. I think maybe I would rather let Francis hit me, just because in my head, a big man is less scary than a gun. And like, the further you think about it, it's like the projectile from the gun is much smaller, but that also means it's going to move a lot faster. And the projectile speed of that beanbag, even though it's non-lethal, that thing's going to be moving much faster out the barrel of a riot control gun than the punch from Francis Ngannou would be. So George Foreman is throwing leather here. He's getting answered back by Lewis. These guys are throwing heat on the... Oh, look at that. Beautiful shot to the body from Foreman. I don't even know what fucking round we're in. Is this round 6? I think it is. We're at the halfway point here in this fight. And you know, that's an interesting thing in and of itself. Is I don't know how I'm going to handle the fact that... And maybe I shouldn't say this because now you're going to look for it. If one of these fights ends in the first round, you're going to know because you can see the length of the video before you click on it, you know? So before you click, if you see the video length is like 38 minutes, you know we went to decision. Or if it's 10 minutes, it might end in the first, second, third round, you know? Here's what I'm saying. Oh my goodness, what a left uppercut from Lewis! George Foreman is staggered! And he clinches, he's hanging on for dear life, but you can see he's on spaghetti legs. You can see there's no foundation there. Oh, and then a shot! A left uppercut from Foreman! How are both of these guys, their hardest shots are coming in the shape of the left uppercut? And now Lennox Lewis is staggering back. What a great fight to open this tournament, Dan Dans. George Foreman and Lennox Lewis are bringing it in a big way. Oh, man, the shot, the jab, the parry right into a stiff jab there from George Foreman. Just beautiful technique right there. Oh, and a shot to the body. Lennox Lewis here. After Lennox Lewis ate that uppercut, this is not the guy we saw late in round 4 who was going bing, bang, boom. You know what I'm saying? The output has slowed because now he's tasted a little bit of that Foreman grill. You know what I'm saying? That left uppercut came straight off the Foreman grill. And to borrow a phrase from the legendary Big E, right here, we got 2 big meaty men slapping meat. That's what this is. And I think that's what this whole tournament's going to be, to be honest with you. Holy shit. And what's interesting is both of these guys, oh man, even though here in this first round, they have never gotten in the ring against each other because, again, this is the 616 verse. But in real life, Lennox Lewis and George Foreman are from different eras. These guys are from different periods of time. There really was no chance for them to meet in the real world, but in the tournament, both of these guys have experience against other fighters. So if we're looking at George Foreman, it doesn't look so good for George Foreman as far as the other greats that are going to be on this tournament. So even if he gets past Lennox Lewis, which we don't know who's going to wind up in the second round. But let's say George Foreman gets past Lennox Lewis. The other guys on this bracket, Tommy Morrison, beat George Foreman by decision. Evander Holyfield beat George Foreman by decision. Muhammad Ali beat George Foreman by knockout. George Foreman has stepped in the ring against Smokin' Joe Frazier, and that is a TKO win that he holds. But against other competition on this bracket, George Foreman's got a 1-4 record. That's 1-3, sorry. 1-3 record against other talent on this bracket. That doesn't look so good for him, does it? Whereas Lennox Lewis, who you could argue is winning this fight right now, I think you could argue that either of these guys are winning this fight right now. Obviously, Lennox Lewis has landed the best shot of this fight up to this point. But Lennox Lewis, when compared to other fighters on this bracket, against Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis wins by knockout. Against Evander Holyfield, they squared off 2 times. First fight, a draw. Second fight, Lennox Lewis wins by decision. And then against Tommy Morrison, Tommy Gunn, the guy who beat George Foreman, Lennox Lewis beat him by TKO. So against other fighters on this bracket, Lennox Lewis is 3-0-1. That looks a lot better than George Foreman's 1-3, doesn't it? How about it? I hope you guys are impressed with the amount of research I did heading into this first fight. And I have my way. Take 2. And if I have my way, which I will, because it's my show, I will be doing this amount of research for every fight that we're going to see here. Oh, man, a straight right. George Foreman's hurt. George Foreman is hurt. Lennox Lewis is pouring it on, and George Foreman, that's a smart fighter right there. When your legs are gone, when you got nothing underneath you, you got nowhere to go except right in front of you. You got to grab onto the only thing in that ring that's going to keep you afloat. That's what's so strange about boxing. You know what I mean? Oh, he stings him. Lennox Lewis is hurt. Lennox Lewis is hurt. This is bad news. Bad news for the big man. That's what's so crazy about boxing is if you get hurt, if you get rattled, if you get rocked, your first thought might be, oh, I got to get to the ropes. Listen, those ropes are going to hold you up and the other guy's going to come find you and fucking knock you down. That's what's going to happen. So when you find yourself in the deep waters, when you're stunned and you're out there in those deep waters, the only life preserver you have is the guy in front of you. The guy that just hurt you is the only thing that's going to keep you from drowning in those deep waters. That's kind of crazy. That's like saying, you know what, I fell off the boat in the middle of the ocean, and you know that great white shark that's circling around? I'm going to use him as a life preserver. Lennox Lewis is hurt again. Lennox Lewis is hurt again, and George Foreman, speaking of that shark in the water, speaking of that great white circling that little fucking inflatable boat, George Foreman smells blood in the water. And I'm not going to take all the credit away from Lennox Lewis. George Foreman has been down. George Foreman has had the referee in his face giving him that standing 8 count. Lennox Lewis has not. We've seen George Foreman sting Lennox Lewis more times than the other way around, but Lennox Lewis doesn't know what it feels like to have his back on the canvas here in the MGN Grand. Not on this night. Not on this night. It is time for another round, and this might be round 7 or 8. Fuck. I really should start looking at the cards that the girls are walking around with. My metaphors are on point, man. You like that? Blood in the water. Your opponent's the life preserver, but he's also the shark. I'm a big Teddy Atlas fan. And what's funny is Teddy Atlas is one of the commentators in this game. So if I had the commentary on from inside the game, you'd be hearing Teddy Atlas talk. And he's got metaphors just like that. So if anybody is in the comments right now going like, man, your commentary is good, it's very inspired by Teddy Atlas. Oh my God! George Foreman with a piston of a right hand catches a ducking Lennox Lewis. A ducking Lennox Lewis on the jaw. And I just said Lewis does not know what it feels like to have his back on the canvas in the MGN Grand. Well, he does now. Technically, he was face down, so he still doesn't know what it's like to have his back on the canvas. But you get me. He's hurt again! He's hurt again! Foreman's gonna pour it on! Foreman's gonna pour it on! Lewis was able to hold on for dear life there. Like I said, man, Foreman is the shark and he's also the life preserver. You know what I'm saying? When you think of something that's going to save your life out there in the ocean, you think of that orange ring with the white stripes on it. This orange ring with the white stripes has 7-inch fangs. You understand? And not only is it going to bite you in half, but it's also fucking venomous. When George Foreman's venomous power is getting into the bloodstream of Lennox Lewis, if you don't think that's sapping his life force with every ticking second, you're out of your fucking mind. You know what I'm saying? That metaphor might have been, that might have been a bridge too far. But I still think it was sick. This is an unbelievable fight. I don't think we could have asked for anything more for this series premiere. Oh my goodness. And Dan's, this show is going to be short and sweet. You know, coming off of Mortal Kombat Monday, which has 36 episode seasons, we went into Monday Night Blitz. And that was, at maximum, that was going to be 19 weeks if Andy made it to the Super Bowl. He didn't. He made it to the playoffs. So we got 17 weeks out of Monday Night Blitz. This is a 7-week show. This is like the shortest individual series ever. So I hope you guys are going to have a blast with this while it lasts. And like I said, if this performs, there's no reason why we can't hit this up with another weight class. George Foreman is not giving Lennox Lewis a second to breathe. It's like me on commentary. Take a fucking breath, will you? George Foreman won't let me. He won't let Lennox Lewis breathe, and he won't let me breathe. I gotta keep calling the action. I gotta keep painting this picture. You know what I'm saying? I got the paintbrush in my hand. I got the paint on the tip of the brush, but that shit's fast drying. Can't let that shit dry out. Gotta keep adding the colors. Lennox Lewis has found himself in trouble, but not too many times. I feel like Lennox Lewis as this... Oh, fuck, what round is it? Show the ring card girl again, please. So I know where we are. Show her one more time. Let me see that card. Show me the card. It's round 9. Okay, Jesus Christ, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm just going to say that they heard me. Lennox Lewis has found himself in trouble, but not too many times. In a career where he went 41-2-1. I mean, you can't say he wasn't facing adversity all the time, being in the ring with guys like Holyfield and Tyson and Tommy Morrison, but he only suffered 2 losses. You know what I mean? And George Foreman only suffered 5. So it's not that big of a bridge to gap, but Lennox Lewis is even a guy who... I mentioned earlier, Anderson Silva, one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time, stuck around too long. He was losing to guys he shouldn't have lost to. You know what I mean? Lennox Lewis didn't find himself in that position. Lennox Lewis was 37 years old when he called it a career. And he didn't retire on 3 losses in a row. He didn't retire on 5 losses in a row. Lennox Lewis retired on a 3-fight winning streak. Lennox Lewis had 3 belts around his waist when he retired. And that final victory, did it come over some Jabroni Jabinski? No, it came over Vitaly Klitschko. Lennox Lewis wasn't fighting bums at the end of his career. His last 2 fights were Mike Tyson and Vitaly Klitschko. Don't get it twisted. And granted, was that prime Mike Tyson? Was that Kid Dynamite? Not necessarily. Mike had been to jail. Mike had been on drugs by the time he got in there with Lennox Lewis, but still, we're not going to take anything away from him, you know what I mean? I gave you guys a couple seconds there without me to just gather your thoughts. I'm not screaming at you the whole time. I'm trying not to scream this whole time anyway. When some big shit happens, I start to yell. But I'm not trying to pull some Matt Cardona turmoil bullshit over here. You know what I'm saying? Thrill Zone for life. And I'm talking about the Brian Myers Thrill Zone, not this fucking Mark Sterling bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Trying to keep everything even keeled. Trying to call it down the middle. Trying not to scream the whole time. Oh, there's a nice jab from Lennox Lewis, who I feel like is not opening up as much as he was before. I feel like once Lennox Lewis got fucking stung, once he got dropped, I feel like he slowed down a little bit. I think he started to recognize his mortality a little bit. You know, when you're in there with George Foreman and you put him down in the early going, in the 4th round, you gotta be feeling like, oh, fuck this. Okay, I know what I'm doing. That's George Foreman, but I'm goddamn Lennox Lewis. Do you understand? When he started to feel that back, I think now he's like, all right, we gotta remember the game plan here. Because that game plan is what allowed me to put George Foreman down in the 4th round. I gotta say, shocked. That's a nasty gash on the cheek, the left cheek of Lennox Lewis. That thing is dripping big Bladinsky. Not great. But what I started to say was I am shocked that we are in the 10th round. I did not see this coming. I didn't think this opening fight was going to get this far. But that's the thing. Just because some of these fights are going to go a long way, I don't want anybody to think that a long fight is a boring fight, because I think nothing could be further from the truth. You know, of course it's fun that there's a possibility that one of these guys might score a 1st or 2nd round knockout. You know, that's a fun possibility. But you got to remember, at the same time, back in real life, not in the 616 verse, but maybe it would be true in the 616 verse. In real life, people complained back in the day that they would pay $50 for a Mike Tyson pay-per-view and it was over in a minute. Or in 40 seconds, you know? That was a major complaint. And I feel like the most recent time we've seen that on a grand scale was with Ronda Rousey. Now, oh my goodness, Lennox Lewis hurts George Foreman, he puts him down! George Foreman is down in the 10th round! And that did not look good. That left uppercut was the final shot, but that wasn't the only shot. Lennox Lewis hit him clean, what had to be 7 or 8 times, and George Foreman is not in good shape. Is he gonna make it back to his feet here in the 10th round? He will. He did not fly up to his feet gingerly. That was tough. That was not easy for George Foreman to get up. And now these guys are throwing leather like they work at a fucking sofa factory where the rules just went out the window. You know what I'm saying? Goodness gracious. And oh man, that slip into the body shot from Foreman there. George Foreman might do well to start focusing more on the body. He's hit Lennox Lewis in the head a number of times, and he has dropped him off a headshot. But there's nothing... Oh, man, what a shot there. There's nothing that will take the gas out of the tank quicker than focusing on somebody's midsection. Because if you're beating them to the left, to the right, straight down the middle, to the body, you're driving the wind out of their lungs. You know what I'm saying? You can't breathe clean when you got George Foreman standing in front of you going bang, dang it, dang it, dang on your goddamn rib cage. Just not the way it works. Picture it like this. You know that thing they call the blob, where they put a little guy on the end of it and then some big Oh man, that was unbelievable. George Foreman unfortunately ducks down into the hardest punch of the fight. Lennox Lewis might have just knocked George Foreman out with that right uppercut. George Foreman's down for the 3rd time, and that is going to be it. The first fight of the Fight Night Championship Tournament is in the books. Lennox Lewis scores a 10th round knockout over George Foreman. And here's a look at the judges' scorecards. We can see Lennox Lewis was winning those rounds, but at no point did that feel like it was out of anybody's grasp. Dan, forget what I was saying about the blob. This was a fantastic opening fight, and what you are looking at right now is the updated graphic for the Fight Night Heavyweight Championship Tournament. In the 2nd round, we know that we are going to see Lennox Lewis. But who is Lennox Lewis going to be in there against? That is the question. And next week, 7 days from today, we will find out. Will Lennox Lewis stand toe-to-toe with Muhammad Ali? Or will he get in there for a third time with Evander, the real deal, Holyfield? Dan adds, it's Ali versus Holyfield next week. I hope you've enjoyed this first episode of the 616 Fight Night Championship Tournament. I love you. I'll see you next week.